Israel gets all the credit for starting all the religions, basically, the Muslim religion, you know. So I don't know if you want to say I know my Jesus wasn't an angel. He was Jesus because of the knowledge in my head. And the angels came to and saved me on the planet, you know, when I died. I know the difference between angels and Jesus, and you got to experience it. Otherwise, it's just a belief, right? So you have to experience it. So if you experience that, I know it sounds crazy, and people don't have to believe it, you know, but they've got to experience it. But you know how the world religions get said, like you said, the word truth, or it's in your heart, right? You feel it. So how are we going to deal with that with our people? Are we going to keep doing a weekly radio show or not? What are we going to do now?
I don't know. This is something that is evolving right now. And
well, Janet won't even come back. Janet's going to say she cut her finger and didn't, you know, she wasn't enjoying herself because she always tells me don't do commercials. That wasn't a commercial. That was a reality of why I thought the three of us came together to create this. But she didn't join my Patreon.com ACO Club, you know. You did. She didn't. And here we are going, yeah, we know it sounds crazy, but we don't know. But Bob Brown believed in you, and he's been doing events how many years? How many years? He's your best endorsement.
The conference I participated in was the second UFO MegaConference. So it's just maybe, a couple of years. He started. I
was talking about he started the original. You do realize he started the original UFO business back with Stephen, Wendell Stevens. You remember Wendell Stevens?
Wendell Stevens. And Zoukalos, Giorgio Zoukalos, he had him on his staff too at one time.
Giorgio Zoukalos, you told me that. No, now listen, folks, I've never met Wendell Stevens that I can recall, and I haven't met Giorgio Zoukalos, but I wrote about his hair and told the History Channel people if it was me, or I just said it on my radio show, but they got hold of it and used it for a campaign with us seeing ourselves go through Giorgio Zoukalos' hair. So people do listen to my radio show. They really do and take my advice. But, it's crazy. I did that little Geico when I had Geico insurance, and they were running a campaign. This is a true story about having a mascot or something for Geico, and I used government employee insurance company, and told the girl, I remember I was in a big Walmart, I was driving a big truck, and she said that she was participating in the campaign that only employees could enter, and I couldn't enter it. And I told her, well, I lived in Hawaii, and every time I think of Geico, I think of gecko. And she said, what's that? I said, it's like a little lizard with little sticky things, but Geico. So you put in for it. And she said, well, I don't know. I said, just put in for it. She said, well, I'll tell my boss when he comes by. And he walked by the desk going to lunch. She said, well, wait a minute. I said, catch him if he's going to lunch. So she did, and the story came back to me because she was my insurance person, that him and him went to lunch and they put it on a napkin, and they liked it. So the little green gecko. So I know, but I've had others too. I've had them where they put, I went driving a truck, and I wanted, back in the day when they had my grandma alive, she would buy frozen apples, and they were real expensive, and I'd eat them all. And I feel bad now, but I wanted some frozen strawberries in my cereal, and I went to this company back in the 80s or 90s. Now, anyway, Anyway, all I did was tell them they could do it, tell them how to do it, and this guy came back to me, and he said, I talked that idea to the owner of they went to some meeting when I came back, and they said, we're going to do it, and you're going to be rich. I said, I don't want nothing for that. It's just an idea. He said, well, you can't just walk away from that. They accepted. I said, well, you collect the money if there's any money involved for an idea. But I've helped people all over with ideas. But I'm going to tell you, Bruce, this is your idea and your story. But Bob Brown is your best endorsement because he believed enough to put you in front of people. I just put you on the radio. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so you thank Bob Brown because Now, Janet can come back or not, because if this is a movement, I call it the Ascension Age, because Jesus and God's involved, but in Ascension. But you can define it any way you want to. I don't know the name for it. Maybe we can all, like you said, consolidate it and make it some big cutting edge with singularity, which you said, and my idea of brains, B-R-A-N-E, in between the universes, which now I have been quoted in a book in China because of the dot theory. Theresa J. Thurmond, I don't think they used Morris, they may have, but they quoted me and put me in educational academia books. And I'm proud of that. So I started with math, teaching them the dot theory, and then I wrote the book Knowing Cosmology. Now tell everybody what's the name of your book, because you're on to something.
Right. The one about UFO, about unconventional aerial phenomena in the Hudson and Walpole River Valley of New York. It's on Amazon, and you can get it for $25, or you can get the Kindle version for about just under $10 and view it. And I wholly recommend those who want to see proof that this phenomena, this paranormal phenomena, the ET phenomena, is real. Get my book or read my Kindle version online. Thank you.
Well, we'll use this and put it on our ACO Club. We've got acoclub.app, A-P-P, and we're going to make it an app. It costs me money, but I've got, there's ways to make apps for people to listen to our radio shows, and I just spent another $100 or $200 on Spreaker and on Sirius Streamer, live streaming, so I can have a 24-hour radio show, but I don't know if I can handle it. I'm going to have some people, Dr. Bruce, that want to tell stories, because I'm not going to play music. We got a local brick and mortar that plays jazz.
What? I heard about 20-plus talks at the UFO MegaConference, and any of those people I could contact and have them on your show, okay?
24 hours a day, though? We're going to run it. Okay. Well, you be in charge of your conglomerate. What'd you call it? Not conglomerate. You called it consolidating. You want to consolidate.
Right. The fewer the shows, the more audience you're going to get, and they're going to know how to find it. Okay? One of the problems is that if you are too diverse, people are not going to know what to listen to or where to go to contact. You have to have one show with variable speakers and topics to get.
Well, in the radio business, they make me stick with one. I can't explain it unless you're in the radio business, but this company makes me only have ACO radio. They've established it in all the electric. It's hard to explain. In the radio business in Florida, they won't let me change from ACO. But now with Spreaker, I've got ACIR radio, so I've already got two radio stations.
ACO is fine. There's no problem.
Yeah, good. Okay, ACO radio.
Get that out there and advertise.
Okay.
But let people know. This is a show to tune into. That's all. Okay?
All right. Well, it's going to be controversial talks, I guess, or crazy talks.
Yeah, but a lot of people listen to that, okay? They like that type of information, okay?
Well, will you help?
The female Art Bell, okay?
Female Art Bell, I like that. That sounded cool. That rhymed, Female Art Bell. That would be. I thought that was George Noory. Oh, but he's not a girl.
George Noory's taken over. And I was interviewed at the UFO conference in February in Laughlin by George Knapp.
Really? I've never met him. He seems like a nice guy. Is he nice?
Yeah,
Did you like him?
Oh, yeah.
I've never met him.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
Really?
He's
awesome.
with George Noory on the coast to coast. So they're all together, and it was a very privilege to have him interview me. I gave him a copy of my book, signed, and so he hopefully will take a look at it and realize that there's something important here. So,
George Noory's come down here. He's part of the Gulf Breeze Metaphysical Group. My girlfriend that helps me, and I help her, we do the metaphysical groups down here in the Panhandle, and her name's Marcia, and her last name's hard to say, Busserhane, Boussarhane, but she paid him. Back then, it was only $1,500 in the hotel and stuff. But remember when you came down, and then back in '94? But I don't know what. She's been doing events for years, but she paid for him to come down and speak. So he knows this area in the Panhandle because he's been down here. And you met him,
right.
And she met him. She paid him to come down for our metaphysical groups. So he's not opposed to metaphysics, but he's gone sort of spiritual or cutting edge. I've heard him sound as sort of Jesus spiritual too, right? On out of body, near death, people like me.
Well, you're talking about George Knapp or George Noory?
Oh, I'm talking about George Noory. Who are you talking about?
I've not had any personal contact with George. I don't know why, but ever since he took over for Art Bell, I was on Art Bell's once with Richard Hoagland, and that was it, back in the 90s. And
so at least you got to be on. Now, Art Bell was a friend of mine on Facebook, and he would write to me and talk to me and was sharing some stuff he was going through, but nobody knows that because I had assured confidential investigative reports. But he liked my investigative techniques and knew I was in the UFO Men in Black or Woman in Black kind of stuff, So Art Bell and I would have conversations, but I never met George Noory. But I thought that's who you're talking about because I said George Noory is the female art. Well, he's not a female. But you thought, so you continued the story about George Knapp. Is that right? So you didn't mean you met George Noory and he interviewed you. George Knapp interviewed you. Now, I've never met him either, but one time this girl at the museum in Roswell, I didn't know who George Knapp was, but because I'd gone to meet Glenn Dennis, and she paid $65 for my unpublished manuscript to get a copy front and back. It had my personal information, my Social Security and everything. But she told me she showed it to George Knapp. So I don't know. But now he's a nice-looking man, and he worked with John Lear. And John Lear talked to me this week because he said he doesn't do radio shows, but he was on Janet's show. So John Lear, George Knapp know each other, right? Through Bob Lazar's story.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Right?
Sure, right.
Yeah. So you met George Knapp, and what? You gave him a copy of your book?
Yep. And he interviewed me on the video, and that will appear somewhere, I'm sure. And
I like him.
Of course, George Knapp and Dr. Colin Kelleher of NIDS or of BASS, they are very good friends, and they published a book together on Skinwalker Ridge. So
well, when I used to go to Vegas, when I went to Vegas a lot, with the Area 51 and get off at the McCarran Airport, the Janet Airlines was right out the door in the buses. See, so I was told never to talk to George Knapp during that '89 scare with Bob Lazar. You remember that? Because I was there the same time, in and out, and it was like I was in the government, so I couldn't talk to anybody. It was just understood. But we had a big row there at the airplane when these people in the news came, and that's her. I've seen her. This guy's, I've seen her get on the bus. I've seen her get, you're supposed to go this way. It was a big old deal. And some Jesuits came. They were dressed in like Sikhs or Gnostics or something. They saved me somehow. They got